Well, it's time for a Sunday Live interview. Joining me now, Ahmednasir, Abdullahi and Charles Kanjama, both senior lawyers. Thank you so much for coming in this evening. We are discussing the corruption allegations that have surrounded Justice Philip Tunoi and the credibility issues that raises in regard to the Supreme Court. Ahmed, I want to start with you because you have claimed via your Twitter handle that you know more about the alleged bribe that was paid out to Justice Tunoi, that it wasn't a $2 million bribe, etc. I want to start by taking our audience through some of the things you've been saying, and then we'll talk. So this is what he's been saying online regarding this tweet. Let's take a look. Correction, the alleged bribe in the Tunoi Kidero is not $2 million, it is $3 million. $2 million was for 4 judges. I wonder if you could go a little slow on those. I hear there is another affidavit much older, and the money involved is 8 million shillings, accompanied by an audio recording. Let's take a look at what else he's said. As we rightly debate and interrogate the Tunoi Kidero 3 million bribe, let us be fair to the members of the court who were not mentioned. Four justices of the Supreme Court are not mentioned at all in Kiplagat affidavit. No more justice, please. The Kiplagat affidavit, and this is the only evidence in the public domain, implicates only Justice Tunoi and what it calls the 2 ladies, quote unquote. And then in response, some of the lawyers, Kari Murungi, saying, please, senior counsel, find some good news to tweet or give us all the bad news at once. Okay, basically, even your friends in the legal fraternity says, come on, out with it, substantiate what it is you're saying, or, you know, leave us alone. So let's start with the, how do you know it was a $3 million and not a $2 million bribe?
First, I think we need to appreciate what is the evidence in the public domain. There's only one affidavit by Kiplagat that is in the public domain. I think it's a 63 paragraph. It's very detailed with a lot of, you know, evidence in terms of the SMS communication. So what I'm telling the public is what is contained in that affidavit. That affidavit touches on 2 things, or on 2 groups of judges. One, it touches extensively on Justice Tunoi, you know, on what he has done, how much money he was given, allegedly given, all those things. Then secondly, this affidavit also says, I mean, one of Kidero's personal assistants says, leave alone the other 2 ladies. Those ones we have sorted them out. So the implication is, and it's just an implication, is that the 2 ladies in the Supreme Court have been paid separately from the 2 million that Justice Tunoi has been given to sort out other guys. So when you add those 2 million plus the suggestion by Kidero's PA that we have sorted the 2 assistants, the 2 ladies, it means it is 2 million plus X. But one thing I would like to clarify is those are the only 3 judges that are mentioned, you know, 2 lady judges and Justice Tunoi. Nobody. And
those 2 lady judges can only be then Justice Kalpana Romal and
yes.
Justice Njoki Ndongo.
Yes, those are the only 2 ladies. That's what the affidavit says at paragraph 25. So there is no other mention of any other person. And you know, the chairman of law said, you know, said that normally when you get this money, you can't deliver judgment. But actually there's a different school of thought which says that, you know, when the Court of Appeal, when the Supreme Court listens to a case, within 1 week they do a conference. This conference, you know, everybody sits, express their view, and the court reaches a decision. Once the court reaches the decision, then the Chief Justice appoints a judge to write the judgment. There's a theory that says that once Justice Tunoi realized that how the judgment is going in terms of the decision the court reached, that is the time he has made contact with them, and that is the time the alleged money exchanged.
These are all allegations. What do you think of what Ahmednasir is bringing to the public domain and the timing of it? Because one wonders how long you've known this and why this is only coming out now.
I think the allegations are troubling. First, I don't think the affidavit of Kiplagat mentions any judge other than Tunoi. So it's important that we have that in context. The allegations themselves are troubling, whether they will be proved correct or not. Whatever is the eventual outcome of this investigation will definitely leave a wound in the Supreme Court and in the judiciary as a whole. I think from the perspective of practitioners in the legal justice system, we want to see the truth come out as quickly as possible. We want to see thorough investigations. We want the process to respect the rights of the accused persons, but at the same time we would like to have sufficient transparency, because we do not want any cancer to spread in the judiciary that has gone through so much in a process of transformation that was meant to give us a judiciary that we can all trust and repose our full confidence in.
What do you think about the current process? Is this one that you believe is transparent, where the accused are getting, fair, hearing, or is this really the mudslinging that many are concerned is happening in this country, that one only has to allege corruption, and there you go, you have completely tarnished a person's reputation and now even an entire institution?
I wouldn't want to anticipate the outcome of the investigations. The Constitution and the Judicial Service Act establish a very good framework, a very good architecture and process that will be undertaken when there are any serious allegations of misconduct against a judicial officer. That process has just begun. I think we are all looking keenly. The Chief Justice, definitely in the public interest, I think had a responsibility where there are such serious allegations that have undergone the initial testing to let the public know that there is something of this nature that is going on. But other than that, I think all Kenyans need to be patient. The Judicial Service Commission is not in fact the body that will make the final decision. If it determines that there is substance in the allegations, they would recommend to the President to appoint a tribunal. So this is just a sifting stage, so that if they find that the allegations don't even meet the very minimum standard, then they will dismiss the matter, and I think the name of the judge would be cleared at that point. All
right. And everything that Ahmednasir you have said so far, including mentioning two ladies, etc., is just an allegation. But one wonders, how long have you had information regarding this particular saga?
First, let me revisit what my learned friend says. I think we need to appreciate that as far as Justice Tunoi is concerned, the die is cast. If you look at the process the JSC takes, and I've participated in this when we dealt with the issue of the former Deputy Chief Justice who faced the allegation of allegedly pinching the nose of someone. What the JSC needs to investigate is a very low threshold. They make no determination. It's a very it is a very cursory look into the issues, very superficial. They will look into the affidavit, and that affidavit speaks for itself. Nobody can, wish it away. And if I was...
So when you say the die is cast, what do you mean by that?
No, they will definitely recommend an appointment of a tribunal for the judge. When you look at those 63-page affidavit, no sensible person can reach a conclusion other than there is need to investigate this matter. Coming back to your issue, everybody came to know this affidavit, like last week when it hit the news. There were rumors that this affidavit was there quite some time, and I think some people come to know of it in December, and that's when the Chief Justice, I think, did his own internal investigation.
Yeah, but when it comes to you specifically, Justice Tunoi is quoted in a local daily taking issue with yourself. Do you have a personal problem with the judge?
You have to understand, when this issue exploded in the public domain, Justice Tunoi said there were 9 lawyers and a judge from Rift Valley who, after his job, a very, very unpersuasive way of explaining the 2 million. The next day he said, it's Ahmednasir who is doing all this. It's true. In August last year, the judiciary, in its annual colloquium, invited me to present a paper, and I presented a paper on why it is difficult to reform the judiciary. Despite the radical surgery, despite the vetting, I presented a paper to say that, it is a societal problem. Do you kill these guys? They will always be the same. So I presented a paper, and my paper also was that why did Justice Tunoi and other judges refuse to retire despite the fact that they have reached the 70 years?
But they went to court, which is...
But why do you go to court? Why do you go to court? The Constitution says you go home at 70 years. So I gave an analogy, like, people make a lot of issue when the Burundi president asks for a third term, and the Constitution allows for a second term. So I was drawing the analogy that there is no difference between Nkurunziza asking for a third term and Justice Tunoi refusing to go home when he has reached that just. But there's nothing personal between me and him.
The allegations that are coming up regarding this particular bench. These are judges who were vetted by JSC, which you were a member of. Is it not an indictment of your tenure at JSC and the work that you did?
I mean, we didn't vet them. JSC recruited these guys. I mean, it's true. I was in the JSC committee that recruited this guy, the bench of the Supreme Court. We advertised, these are the best Kenyans we could get. There were many Kenyans who applied, but when you do, these were the best Kenyans who could get this job. I mean, to allow for 11 members of the JSC, interviewed them, not just myself. Then we said that these are the guys who can go to the Supreme Court.
And let me add that for the judges who had been recruited under the old constitution previously, there was a vetting process that was undertaken by the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board. But even the vetting board did point out that they were limited in the extent of investigations by the complaints they received and the evidence that came to back those complaints. The biggest challenge of corruption cases, whether it is in the judiciary or elsewhere, is normally that the giver and receiver of the inducement are both happy with the outcome. So none of them is likely to give evidence against the other. For me, I think that as a country we need to encourage whistleblowing, because it is only when whistleblowers start coming out that we'll get more and more cogent evidence, and will ensure that even those people who are in public office who may be tempted to dabble in corruption think twice or think thrice, because of the real possibility that eventually evidence will come out even from the other participant in the corruption.
All right, and I know, Ahmed, you have dismissed what Justice Tunoi said, but I want for good measure to play this clip by Justice Tunoi when he's talking about the current wars that have besieged him. Let's listen and then we'll talk.
But there are people who have been waiting to succeed me in the judiciary. They have even told me that I've delayed giving them a vacancy in the Supreme Court. They have assisted in the litigation against me about the retirement age. That is the case which I filed in the High Court and lost, and in the Court of Appeal.
What is your own take, Charles? What we are witnessing, some say we are being treated to the intrigues that Justice Tunoi has alleged, you know, some sort of politics within the court, succession politics, the taking over of the, you know, Chief Justice position that will be vacant very shortly. This is a court that is the only court that will be able to determine on a presidential petition, and all these allegations coming rather close to an election cycle. What are we seeing? Are we fighting corruption, or is this politics?
I think these are two distinct issues that you need to investigate separately. First is the question of corruption allegations, which are unfortunate. They may be founded or unfounded. There is a constitutional process going on. Let us allow it to take its course. But we cannot, of course, totally avoid the reality that there are people who may be angling to join the Supreme Court upon retirement of certain judges, or to rise up the ranks. I think both Ahmed and myself have been involved in litigation in court in regard to the retirement age of judges, and we are aware that some of the judges are actually saying that this whole saga is because some people want to succeed them. We don't believe so, because we think it is a pure constitutional question interpreting Article 166 of the Constitution. But definitely, if it is a matter that needs to be investigated, it ought to be investigated. But in the fullness of time, you will always expect in any judiciary, in any country in the world, that when people are approaching retirement age, questions arise, or people start getting concerned about who's going to succeed them, whether it's the American Supreme Court, the UK Supreme Court. Kenya is no exception to that interest in the succession of one judge or another.
I think the assertion by the judge, it's shockingly simplistic. I mean, very diversionary. I mean, he is facing a specific allegation. Did he or did he not receive $2 million from Kidero? That's what's on the table. Whether people are applying for this job when the position arises is another issue. That's not before this country. Who will succeed him is not before the issue. That office is regulated by a constitutional provision. There is a constitutional qualification on who can become a judge of the Supreme Court. That position has not been advertised. That he can, jump to that is a clear testimony of his inability to address what is before him.
Are you interested in how the Supreme Court is constituted?
No, why should I be interested? I constituted it myself. I mean, I was in the JAC. I mean, I interviewed, and we gave the jobs. I have no interest. I'm no longer in the JAC.
Are you interested in reconstituting it?
I have no powers to reconstitute it. I'm just like my learned friend here.
They allege you have powers, Ahmed. They allege that...
No. Let us not be, sideshows. Let's avoid sideshows.
These are sideshows.
These are sideshows. The Honorable Judge should answer a simple question. Did he or did he not receive? There's a lot of evidence on this issue. Let him prepare. And instead of, saying that there are people who have these positions, of course he should have left, in all fairness, he should have left this position 2 years. He has been paid close to 50 million shillings.
With due respect, Ahmednasir, yes. he does have a right to go to court, and he has gone to court.
He has no right to go to court.
And he has gone to court on the matter. Well, the court just recently claimed that they do have a case to answer, and that they should remain in office until their cases are heard and determined.
Let's make it clear. There's a constitutional provision that says judges will retire at 70 years. Justice Tunoi refused to retire. He went to court. He has been getting one order from one court to another for 2 years, and he is now been in court for 2 extra years.
I think Anne, I agree with you that the judges have a right of to a fair hearing. They have right of access to justice. He's exercising that right of access to justice.
Some think in breach of the Constitution.
Some think that there is a manipulation of the judicial system in the process, but I wouldn't want to pass judgment on that issue. Indeed, the appeal of Justice Tunoi is coming up for hearing in slightly under 2 weeks, on 12th of February. And on that issue, we will wait to hear what the Court of Appeal judges say. I think the question of retirement is pending in court. The question of investigation of claims of corruption is now pending before the JSC. We have to let these processes take their course.
Do you feel that just the fact that we're discussing it, it calls into question the leadership of the court under Chief Justice Willie Mutunga?
I think we would like, and indeed it is the ideal situation, that the court is totally beyond reproach. As we say, like Caesar's wife, it should be beyond suspicion. But the court is made up of human beings, and sometimes you have challenges. Some of the human beings, the vast majority of judges and magistrates are hardworking, have full integrity, and we have full confidence in them. There will be a few bad apples. This would happen in any part of the world, and I think the way to test the leadership of Chief Justice Willie Mutunga is how does he deal with these situations. Does he hide them under the carpet? Does he expose them and deal with them with courage? Does he respect the rights of the judge? Does he avoid political sideshows while focusing on ensuring the judiciary is clean? And so far, I wouldn't pass judgment on him. I would say that through his statements, through his actions, he has manifested a consistent desire to have a judiciary that is totally free of any suspicion.
Do you agree, Ahmednasir?
No, I think we need to contextualize Justice Mutunga's tenure. The Chief Justice is a transitional Chief Justice. I mean, he's transiting from one order to another. And all transitions have their difficulties and their challenges. But when you look into his tenure holistically, I think he has done exceptionally well in terms of how he has handled major challenges that has faced the court, the judiciary. He has also done very well in ensuring that the judiciary has exercised independence from all other arms of government. And he has also ensured that when there is a specific problem that arises, it's dealt according to the law.
Should it be found that Justice Tunoi has a case to answer, and this goes for further investigation, does it call into question all the decisions that he has sat on, all the decisions that he and the Supreme Court has sat on?
I think that would be a speculative question, but let me attempt to answer it to the best I can. And I will answer it by making reference to a coordinate court from the United Kingdom. The top court in the United Kingdom is the Supreme Court, but a few years back it was the House of Lords. And there was this famous case involving Augusto Pinochet's extradition from Chile to to Spain, in which one of the judges who was sitting in this top court was alleged to have had some interest. Of course, it was not a direct allegation of corruption, but it was alleged to have had an interest in the outcome of the Pinochet case. The House of Lords decided to nullify its previous decision and constitute a fresh bench. But this did not constitute a suspicion against all the prior decisions of this judge or of the House of Lords. So unless there is more evidence, I think the scope of the investigation is on one case, and it may not be very appropriate to speculate that this calls into question all the other cases of the Supreme Court. But if evidence was to come to light, definitely we would have to take it into account.
But there are two important issues in Justice Tunoi's matter that needs to be appreciated. One is that, as my learned friend rightly said, and we're doing this case, that case will be heard, I think, on 15th and 12th. That case will have a major bearing on how this case goes on. If the court holds, for example, that Justice Tunoi is entitled to retire at 74, this process will go on. If the court holds that Justice Tunoi should have retired 2 years ago, the process of the JSC will come to an end. But there could be a second process. The moment we assume, let's assume that the court says that you should have retired at 70, the DPP will become interested in this matter, and there's a possibility that, considering the issues raised in that affidavit, there may be a major investigation by the CID and the DPP with a distinct possibility, I'm not saying certain, with a distinct possibility that Justice Tunoi may spend quite some time in the criminal courts.
But do you think it would call into question his previous decisions?
Not like the one before the court, you know, the Kidoro case, it will certainly call. There's a good chance that the moment the JSC, for example, recommends to the president that a tribunal should be appointed, I am certain that Waititu will file an application to review that decision, because that decision can no longer be given full faith and credit.
I thank you both for your views. That's where we wind up our Sunday Live interview. We're back with more news after this. Please stay with us.